Welcome. Today we're heading into one of the world's most fascinating historical sites, the Valley of the Kings in Luxor, Egypt.
An incredible place, really. The final resting spot for so many new kingdom of pharaohs and nobles. It just captures the imagination, doesn't it? For scholars, for visitors, for anyone interested in ancient Egypt.
Absolutely. And today we're zooming in on one particular tomb, KV2. This is the tomb of Ramses IV.
That's right, KV2. It's located there in the main valley, tucked between KV7 and KV1. Edward Ayrton actually gets the credit for its official discovery, back around 1905, 1906.
So early 20th century. Now Ramses IV, his tomb is large, but I understand it's a bit different from some others.
It is, yes. While it's definitely substantial, it's often described as, well, simpler, maybe more unique in its design compared to some of the grander tombs.
Simpler. Why was that?
Well, it likely comes down to the economic situation at the time. Ramses IV's reign followed the turmoil after Ramses III's assassination. Egypt was facing some economic strain.
So even a pharaoh's grand plans for eternity could be shaped by the kingdom's budget.
It's a very real reminder, isn't it, that these massive projects were tied to the kingdom's prosperity. The tomb reflects the resources available.
And this tomb, KV2, it wasn't lost for millennia like Tutankhamun's, was it? People knew about it.
Oh, definitely not lost. It was known quite early on, actually. People have been going in there for a very long time.
Really? Ooh.
Well, famous early explorers like Champollion and Rosellini apparently used it as a sort of base camp, temporary lodging back in the 19th century.
Wow, imagine setting up camp inside an ancient pharaoh's tomb.
And later, it seems Coptic Christians actually lived in it for a time. They left their mark, too. You can find Coptic and Greek graffiti on the walls.
That's incredible. Layers of history right there on the walls.
Exactly. It adds another dimension to the tomb's story. So what we want to do today is really give you a feel for KV2, its history, what makes it stand out architecturally and artistically, and share some fascinating facts along the way.
Sounds great. Let's start with the basics. Where exactly is it located and what's the layout like inside?
Okay, so KV2 is cut into the rock at the base of a hill. It's on the northwest side of the main valley, the main wadi, just south of that little side valley that leads up towards KV1, Tutankhamun's tomb.
Got it. And the structure itself?
Architecturally, it's pretty straightforward, a linear plan, basically.
So a straight shot into the mountain.
Pretty much. You enter and go through 3 corridors. They're labeled B, C, and D. They slope gently downwards.
Okay, corridors B, C, D.
Then you reach a chamber, E, sometimes called the well chamber, though it doesn't have a deep shaft like some others. After that, you enter the main burial chamber, J.
The heart of the tomb.
Right. And then beyond the burial chamber, there's one more corridor, K. And off that corridor, K, there are 3 small side chambers, Chi, K, A, and K.
A clear progression towards that final resting place. Now, the magic of these tombs is often on the walls, right? The decorations, the texts. What do we see in KV2?
Oh, the walls are incredible. KV2 is known for its decorations. They are packed with scenes and hieroglyphs from major ancient Egyptian funerary texts. The idea was these texts would protect and guide the pharaoh into the afterlife.
So a kind of spiritual roadmap.
Exactly. As you go deeper, the texts change. In those first corridors, B and C, you find the Litany of Ra.
The Litany of Ra, a hymn to the sun god.
Precisely. Praising Ra in all his forms. It's about rebirth and the sun cycle. Then, moving into Corridor D, and later in Corridor K, beyond the burial chamber, the imagery shifts to the Book of Caverns.
Book of Caverns, what's that about?
That text details the sun god's journey through the underworld at night, passing through different caverns and dealing with the beings there.
Okay. And the chamber before the burial chamber, E.
Chamber E features parts of the Book of the Dead, probably the most famous one, really a collection of spells to help the deceased navigate the trials of the afterlife.
Spells for safe passage, makes sense. And the burial chamber itself, Jay. That must be the main event, decoration-wise.
It really is. Chamber J has several important texts depicted. You've got the Book of Gates.
Book of Gates. Sounds like checkpoints.
Sort of, yeah. It describes the journey through the 12 gates or hours of the night with guardians and challenges. It shows a very ordered view of the underworld.
Order even in the afterlife.
Yeah.
What else?
There is also the M Duet, which translates to Book of What is in the Underworld, another journey text, plus the Book of Nut, the sky goddess covering the ceiling, and the Book of the Night. And on one of the gates, Gate KB, scenes from the Book of the Earth.
It's like a whole library dedicated to ensuring the pharaoh's successful journey.
Are there other images besides these specific texts?
Yes, definitely. Throughout the tomb, especially in Corridor B, Corridor K, and those side chambers, KB, KB chair, you see many depictions of Ramses IV himself.
The pharaoh, shown interacting with gods.
Often, yes, presented before various deities, reinforcing his divine status and connection to the gods. And interestingly, in side chamber KB, there are illustrations of the kind of funerary furniture that would have originally been placed in the tomb. A visual inventory for the afterlife. Given its age and the fact that it was open early on, how is the tomb held up? What's its condition like now?
Remarkably well, actually, especially the painted decorations. A big reason for that is it was high enough to avoid major flood damage, which unfortunately ruined the decoration in some other tombs in the valley.
That's lucky. But being open must have brought its own challenges.
It did. Wear and tear over centuries, graffiti, as we mentioned, dust, changes in humidity from people going in and out. It all takes a toll.
So what's being done to protect it? Conservation efforts.
Yes, significant work has been done by the Egyptian authorities, the Supreme Council of Antiquities. They've had to infill cracks in the rock, carefully clean the painted surfaces. Very delicate work.
I can imagine. What about managing visitors?
That's key. They've installed new lighting systems that are safe for the pigments. There are wooden walkways now to guide people and keep them off the floor surfaces, and glass panels in front of some of the most vulnerable painted walls to prevent touching.
It's that constant challenge, isn't it? Letting people experience these amazing places while making sure they survive for the future.
Exactly. It's a tough balance, especially with the sheer number of tourists who want to see inside KV2.
Now, shifting gears a bit, modern technology, archaeology isn't just about digging anymore, right? I hear about surveys, scanning. Has that happened around KV2?
Oh, yes. The whole Valley of the Kings has been subject to some really advanced geophysical and geomatic surveys. There was a big project coordinated by the Polytechnic University of Turin using all sorts of non-invasive tech.
Non-invasive, meaning they could look underground without digging.
Precisely. They use things like laser scanning and photogrammetry to create incredibly detailed 3D maps of the surface.
Okay, mapping the surface.
Yeah.
What about beneath?
For that, they use techniques like ERT, electrical resistivity tomography.
Yeah.
It measures how electricity passes through the ground, which can indicate different materials or structures.
Like an X-ray for the Earth.
Sort of, yeah. And GPR, ground-penetrating radar. Sending radar pulses down and reading the echoes that bounce back off buried features.
Right.
And also geomagnetic surveys, GM, which measure tiny variations in the Earth's magnetic field caused by buried structures or objects.
Fascinating tools.
Yeah.
Were these used specifically near KV2?
They were. They did high-density geomagnetic surveys around KV2, which was apparently a first for the valley. They were testing how well it worked there, especially since modern things like pipes or cables can interfere with the readings.
Did they find anything? Any hints of hidden chambers next door?
Well, the GPR, the ground-penetrating radar, did pick up something interesting right in front of the entrance to KV2. They described it as a localized high-amplitude anomaly.
High-amplitude anomaly. Sounds intriguing. What does that mean in plain English?
It means the radar signal bounced back strongly from a specific spot. Its origin is unclear, they said. It might be some kind of unknown deposit under the surface.
Unknown deposits.
They also found a linear feature nearby, running parallel to the path visitors use. Maybe some kind of old wall or boundary. Again, not definitive.
And the ERT, the electrical scans?
Those showed some areas with low electrical resistance, maybe different rock layers or places where debris has filled a void, and other spots with high resistance which could indicate cavities, like maybe another chamber or just fractured rock.
So tantalizing hints, but nothing conclusive yet.
Exactly. The researchers stressed that these geophysical blips need archaeological context. They point towards areas needing further investigation, perhaps, but don't scream hidden tomb on their own.
Still, it shows there might be more to find. This kind of work builds on the older mapping projects, right? Like the Theban mapping project.
Absolutely. The Theban mapping project, the TMP, has done incredible work for decades, creating detailed maps and atlases of the valley. These newer geomatic surveys, using 3D tech, aim to update and enhance that documentation, making it even more precise. And importantly, integrate these geophysical findings, what's potentially under the ground, into the overall map.
Creating a much richer, multi-layered picture of the whole valley. Let's go back inside KV2 for a moment. All those texts and scenes we talked about, the Book of Gates, the Book of the Dead, they must tell us a lot about what Ramses IV and Egyptians of his time believed about death and the afterlife.
Immensely so. The sheer effort and artistry poured into depicting these texts show how fundamentally important they were. It was all about ensuring the king successfully navigated the underworld, overcame its dangers, and achieved rebirth and eternal life, joining the sun god.
It wasn't just about burial, it was about transformation.
Precisely. The tomb itself, with these decorations, was seen as a kind of engine, a magical tool to facilitate that transformation and also to perpetuate the king's power forever.
That power aspect is interesting. I actually saw a discussion mentioning a detail from KV2, something about harks depicted with crowns on them.
Ah, yes, it's a fascinating detail. There are depictions, I believe copies exist, showing musicians, perhaps for the afterlife, and their instruments, harps, are decorated with royal crowns.
What's the significance of that?
The interpretation is that it's another way of confirming Ramses V's royal authority and ensuring that his status, his kingship, carried over into the next world. It wasn't just about getting there, it was about arriving as the powerful pharaoh he was. And the musicians themselves suggest he expected certain pleasures and comforts too.
So, maintaining his royal lifestyle, in a way, music included. Now, we've focused tightly on KV2, but the Valley of the Kings is full of tombs. Did the sources mention anything broader about other discoveries nearby, perhaps?
They didn't go into detail about Ramses V's mummy specifically, but they did provide a little context. For example, one source mentioned tomb KV31, where highly fragmented remains of several people from the mid-18th dynasty were found.
Okay, so not just pharaohs buried there.
Exactly. It reminds us the valley was used over a long period and housed burials for other royal family members and high-ranking elites too. KV2 is one important tomb within this much larger, complex, sacred landscape.
A landscape that still holds mysteries. So, as we wrap up our look at the tomb of Ramses V, what are the key things to remember about KV2?
I think KV2 offers this really valuable window into a specific moment in the New Kingdom, a time of some transition. You see the religious devotion in the incredibly detailed funerary texts, which are thankfully quite well preserved.
Despite its relatively simpler architecture compared to some others.
Right. That contrast itself tells a story about the era, and its preservation is remarkable, allowing us to see those vibrant depictions of the afterlife journey.
And it's a tomb with this long history of being known and accessible right up to today.
Yeah.
Where it's a major site for visitors, but also for cutting-edge scientific research.
Absolutely. That accessibility through time is part of its story, which, combined with those recent geophysical hints, that anomaly near the entrance, those resistivity readings, it does make you wonder, doesn't it?
Wonder what?
Well, considering how long KV2 has been open, yet we're still finding these subtle clues beneath the surface with new technology, what other secrets might still be hidden right there in the vicinity of Ramses I's tomb, just waiting for the right discovery or the next technological leap to bring them to light?